A couple of months ago, I made a video about playing guitar in a Britpop style, and it was a massive hit. Literally tens of people watched it. And one name came up quite a few times in the comments. It sounds like a few of you were really interested to hear my take on the playing of John Squire. And I really like John Squire. I want you to really like me. So, a video on John Squire it is. Here are a few examples for you to try out. So for this, I've focused mainly on his work with the Stone Roses, kind of splitting it in half. We have the debut album style and then the style he used on the Second Coming album. I know he's done loads of other stuff since, but my justification is that the style he used on the Second Coming album has remained pretty consistent ever since, so I figured by talking about the Second Coming, that kind of covers it. It's a gross oversimplification, I know, I do apologise, but that's what I've done. So, the debut album then. I think of this as a very sunny kind of a style, if that makes sense. It's very bright, very cheerful for the most part, kind of sounding guitar playing. And there are a few ways he did this. First of all, the use of a capo. What I've done here is I've put a capo up at the 6th fret, and we're going to play our first example based in the key of F sharp. And if you play a C shape with the capo on at the 6th fret, you have an F sharp chord, but played nice and high up the neck for that kind of bright, almost kind of African kind of style that people often assume Johnny Marr was going for as well. Yeah, you get the idea anyway. So our first example is going to use that F sharp chord, that C shape, with a little picking pattern like so. And then we're going to turn that into a suspended 4th chord by just moving the 3rd finger down to the D string at the, well, 9th fret, but 3 frets above the capo. Another really important aspect of this playing to me is the way that the notes cascade into each other. They very deliberately are left to ring into each other for that kind of very lush kind of effect. Often used in arpeggio playing like that generally, but also in his lead playing as well. So I have a kind of backing that I've mocked up here on the looper, and I'm just going to add that part to it. So we've got a basis of something, now we'll add a little bit of lead over the top. Okay, for our lead part then, the capo has come off and we're going to be very, very obvious. Our song is in the key of F sharp major. Let's play an F sharp major pentatonic scale. And that scale is as follows. F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, C sharp, D sharp, and then back to F sharp. And a really interesting aspect of his playing around this time for me was again that kind of cascading effect he often got for a very sort of watery kind of a sound. So what we're going to do here, add just a little touch of delay, and play a pretty simple sequence really, where we're going to go pretty much just running down the scale. So we're going to start by hammering on from 11 to 14 on the E string, and then pulling back off, then going down to 14 on the B string, and then playing the note on the E string again. But you notice how we're not doing the typical rock thing of making each note quite succinct. We're kind of letting the notes bleed into each other by holding on to them on the neighbouring strings. So you get this. And then I'll do that again. But end on the root note on the second time, the F sharp, at the 11th fret on the G string. All right, let's give that a try then. So by the time the Stone Roses finally got around to recording their second album, a lot of the sunshine had dissipated, it seems, and been replaced by something altogether a little bit grittier. And for our second example here, I have more of a rock sort of a riff, pretty typical of John's playing at the time. So what's happening in this one is we're essentially moving between these three chords. We're going from a D, right, a D5, a D power chord, then up to F5, up again to G, and then back to D. However, John was not the sort of player to be content just doing that. He'd often flesh it out with quite a lot of melody and a lot of riffing. So what I have going on here is I have a backing track, again, made on my looper that goes like so. Like so. So how I'm going to navigate through that is I'm going to play a D5 in the open position here. So it's like a regular D chord, but you're not holding down the first string, because again that would make it too sunny. So we're just playing, and then I'm going to do this little bit of a riff there, playing the F at the 3rd fret on the D string and then off again. And then maybe a similar sort of a thing on the A string at the 3rd fret. Then we're going to go to the F chord. And he hadn't completely abandoned the arpeggio style by this point, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a picking thing around the F chord there. And then for the G, I'm going to hammer up to this G here at the 5th fret on the D string. So from the F, that's going to... pull off to the F, and I'm going to take us back to the D like so. On the A string, I'm going to pull off from 5 to the open string, and then hammer on from 3 to 5. So that's our D root there. So we have something like so. Another one of those as well. 3 to 0 on the D string. Right, let's see if I can add that to the mix then. Now, for the lead playing of this period, we're thinking much more Jimmy Page than Johnny Marr. For jamming over the top of that, obvious choice is the D minor pentatonic scale, which goes D, F, G, A, and C, before returning to D. And we're not getting so much of the delicate cascading kind of a thing here. It's a lot more staccato, a lot kind of harder edged. So a few kind of signature ideas that you might like to try out. You'd often do this kind of trill, where you're hammering on and pulling off between the C and the D note. Very, very Jimmy Page, obviously, and that works really nicely over a track like that. Also, talking of staccato, you could take a kind of a classic string bending idea like this, where we bend up the 12th fret on the G string and get this kind of choking effect, where essentially after picking each time, you're muting it quick. As you're bending up and down for a nice sort of pitch manipulation effect. Another thing he did quite a bit in this time, again, very reminiscent of Jimmy Page, funnily enough, he'd often incorporate notes from outside the scale, like the major seventh. So, for example, if we're walking up from C to D, you could go via the C sharp in the middle for a nice kind of funky sort of effect. Alright, so let's just try a few of those ideas out over our track. That sort of a thing. So there we go, a few Stone Roses-ish ideas for you to have a go at. Really hope that's useful and maybe even inspired you to work a few parts out for yourself and come up with your own variations and whatnot. Please do let me know in the comments if there's any other players you'd like to hear me have a crack at, so to speak. In the meantime though, thanks ever so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing, really do appreciate it, and I'll see you with something else next time. Cheers.